I'm in my 5th year of uni now with a HD average, and the first thing that I wanted to know when I came to uni was how do you actually take notes here, because it's so different to how you're taught at high school. I couldn't really find a good answer at the time, but I did buy one of these and it was the best purchase I ever made, so hopefully throughout this video I'm going to try and convince you of why. And because I think it's just a more interesting way of presenting stuff like this, I'm going to take you through a morning in my life as a wannabe runner. And that's not even how my day started, because we got up at 4 AM to watch Jess Hull get second in the women's 1500. Alright, so I'm not saying that this is the absolute best way to do uni, but you have to get an iPad. Like, it was hands down the best purchase I made for university. I made it, I guess, at the start of first year. And I really could not imagine my university life without it. You can even get a Apple student discount by going to apple.com/education, and you can see here the difference is about $200, which is quite significant. And if you're looking at the start of the year, Apple will often have like a promotion going where they might give you a free set of headphones or earpods or something like that, or a gift voucher. So yeah, I would highly recommend, if you really absolutely don't want an iPad, then just go back to pen and paper, like get the old notebooks out, but whatever you do, don't type notes on your iPad. There are so many studies out there that show that actually handwriting your notes, either with a pen or an Apple Pencil, greatly improve your recall and your actual understanding of what you're writing. And also when you're taking notes in a lecture theatre, it's very easy just to type away on a laptop, just a complete transcript of whatever the lecturer is saying, but you're not actually processing that information. When you're handwriting notes, you actually have to think about what you're writing and be selective with what you choose to write down, and that will really help you in the learning process. So at least if you're in like a STEM degree, then I would 100% say get an iPad. It is so worth it. And I mean, laptop notes just look ugly. So hopefully this video is going to make you team iPad, but I'll have to convince you later because it is a Sunday morning, 6:30, and my friends are about to pick me up for a long run in the mountains. Alright, so that long run I just did was 26 Ks with 970 meters elevation gain. There you go. And it's not actually totally irrelevant to this video. So kind of up until now, I would not fuel for my long runs at all. I'd do 25 kilometers around the lake and I'd not eat anything. I wouldn't even drink anything. But I'd get back from my long run and I'd have a shower and I'd make lunch, and then I'd be able to do nothing except sit on the couch all day. And I'd feel fine during my run, like my runs would be pretty quick. Anyway, so yeah, normally on a Sunday I wouldn't be able to do any work at all because I'd just be so dead. But turns out that that's not normal and it's actually really easily avoided. So the way to avoid that in your long runs is just to eat during the run. It seems like common sense, but for some reason I wasn't doing it. So during that run I had a killer python lolly every 45 minutes, and they have about just under 20 grams of carbs. So in the almost 3 hours, yeah, I guess I was still only having about 20 grams of carbs an hour on average, but it's enough that I still feel energized enough right now to make this video. So that links into my study and note-taking plans, because if you run a lot and you want to make sure that you actually have energy to study after a long run, or any run really, make sure you are fueling yourself properly. Alright, so after you've got your brand new iPad, the next thing you're probably going to be interested in is which apps do you need to get. And historically there's been a bit of a GoodNotes Notability debate or warfare, and I actually used both of them. They were like $20 each when I bought them. I know that now they are subscription based rather than pay once, which is so stupid. If you had to choose one, I would probably go with Notability. GoodNotes is more aesthetic, as you'll see. And I think there's a lot of overlap in ability now. Notability used to be really good for like importing PDFs, and you'd import your slides and annotate them, which is what I use it for. And then GoodNotes I'd use for kind of making notes from scratch on like a blank piece of paper. But yeah, I think you can do both on both now, so yeah, maybe it's up to you. But the way in which you actually take notes on your iPad is going to depend on what kind of classes you have. So obviously I did my undergrad in STEM. I did biology mainly with like chemistry and math. Again, I think if you're doing something like an arts degree or law or something, maybe an iPad wouldn't be the best option for you, but definitely in that science, math and pre-med, there's a lot of memorization, a lot of kind of concepts that you have to understand and know. Then obviously the iPad's really good for that. So I guess to start off with my undergrad, which was mainly biology, so we could break that into lectures where the lecturer would sort of upload the slides beforehand, and then lectures where either the lecturer wouldn't upload the slides beforehand, and also math lectures fit under that because slides weren't that beneficial in maths. So it depends on the subject, either of those. And then we had tutorials and labs, and that was most of the class types that I had in undergrad. In my honours, I didn't really use my iPad at all. I might have used GoodNotes to make a few figures, but nothing else. So now I'm in postgraduate med in first year, and we have lectures and lectures and lectures and more lectures. There's so many lectures, it's ridiculous. And then on top of that we have some hands-on labs, some clinical skills down at the hospital. We have online pracs, and we have these like problem-based group learning sessions. So yeah, I guess I'll go through how to take notes in each of these types of classes. And actually, I do not use Anki at all. We are team no Anki. I think Anki is a huge waste of time. All my friends use it. They're just sitting in the corner in like 5-minute breaks, just like flicking through their Anki. They're like, wow, I did 600 cards today, and it's ridiculous. They take too long to set up yourself. You're better off just reading through the slides and actually like taking on board what's there, rather than trying to like, oh, I'm gonna put a box over this word and then try and remember what it is later. Just learn it. Anyway, onwards, how we actually take notes. So I think the easiest way to do this is I've got my iPad here and I'm just gonna screen record and show you what I'm talking about. So I guess first off is my home screen. I really like having all these widgets here. I can easily see both of my calendars. So I've got this is actually Apple Calendar, but Google Calendar like imports to it, so it's basically my Google Calendar because Google doesn't have a big widget like this. And on the right we have my uni calendar, which just has my class timetable and things like that. Yep, so that's next week's schedule, for example. And that'll just show up throughout the day there. And then I've got this app which just lets me show a countdown timer to events. So I've got my races here, so I've got this has actually been changed to a 10K on the 25th, and then a Sydney 10K, which is in 35 days. I actually added a race 1 week after Dubbo, which is why I changed from a half to a 10K. And that is the Australian Cross Country Championships. Like, who would have ever thought I would be running in a race like that? Yeah, and so the two apps I use are GoodNotes and Notability. So first of all, I'll just show you how I used to take notes for classes like math or when there's no lecture slides. And so you can make folders in GoodNotes like this. You can see here, and you can even make sub notebooks. Yeah, so you can see this is how I structured my notes, just the start of a lecture, highlighted, and then just working through each of the examples that they go through in class. To be honest, I can't really remember doing any of this because it was 4.5 years ago and I don't use math anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice looking way to take notes. Obviously you can do it in a much prettier way than that. And actually do that much. What else? Alright, so these are some of my notes from biology. You can see it starts off pretty basic and I was able just to make them look kind of nice. Going through, and then it got to the point where there's just too much content, and you can see here I just started importing screenshots of lecture slides, and I think around there's the point where I decided to go back to Notability and just import the slides from the beginning because there's just too much content. So if we now go to Notability, and this is how I take notes for all of my lectures now. You can arrange them into subjects like this, and then you can have also subgroups. So I've got all my undergrad courses here, and then arranged into each of the different classes, and then lectures versus tutorials. Medicine is split into like semesters almost, and we have the same subjects each semester, like anatomy and immunology and physiology. But I've decided to split it up per semester as well as by like topic. You can see I've imported each of the lectures one by one, and we can see just all of the lecture slides. But it's really useful, for example, when they don't tell you what an acronym means and you have to write it out. Sometimes the lecturer will say things that help make the concept clearer that you want to make note of. And obviously you can highlight things, make stuff like this a lot easier to understand if you can actually write down what each step is. I already mentioned, don't try and write every single word that the lecturer says, because that's not going to be beneficial at all. But the way that I study, which is again not using Anki, is a certain number of weeks out from an exam. I'll just go through one subject at a time, start at the first one and just read them. I'll go back through and I'll make sure that I understand each of the topics. This way you can spend as much time as you need on each thing. I can then go watch other videos about it to make sure that I understand it. So the other thing that I'll do is, as I'm scrolling through, I'll have another piece of paper and I'll be making like a summary sheet, I guess, for not each lecture, just as much as needs to be written. So these are the kinds of things that I wrote. I had about 5 pieces of paper per subject. And again, it's not everything that we learned, it's just the things that I want to look at again. Once I've written it down, I should have already understood it and I would have had the time to go and look it up and make sure that was the case. But the purpose of the summary sheets is just so that the night before the exam or the couple nights before, I can go and just read the summary sheets and just refresh my memory about what exactly we learned. But later on, maybe even when I'm a doctor or something and I want to just check something, I'll be able to go back and look through those summary notes. And I think that'll be really useful. But one other thing that I have done in the past is, say I wanted to make the summary notes not on paper, but on GoodNotes, which is what I started to do here. And I think I did microbiology. So, this is a notes from one of my lectures from microbiology. You can actually split screen GoodNotes and Notability together. So I can be reading the lecture slides like this, and I can be taking the notes on the side. And I find that works really well. And I can also include pictures. Yeah, it's a handy hack for you. I think you can also actually, yeah, so if you just wanted to use one of the apps, you can definitely just do the exact same thing in Notability. If I wanted to have a kidney lecture on this side, and then I wanted to just be writing on a piece of paper on this side, and I could just do it like that too. So yeah, for courses where there's a lot of memorization, you don't want to you're too scared to sort of summarize things early on because you don't know what's important and what's not, what you need to remember. I think this is actually a really good strategy. And so some other uses for the iPad, aside from lectures. So tutorials are really easy. So you can just import the tutorial worksheet in here and annotate it easily enough. Works really good for like past exam papers and things like that too. Labs, most of the time you can't actually bring like an iPad or a laptop into lab anyway, so you just do that on paper. In med specifically, for our online pracs and our labs and our problem solving sessions, what I'll do is, again before the exam, I'll just read through what we've done because it's all online mostly. And I might just make a summary sheet on paper again or on the iPad. Yeah, really basic stuff. I mean, the main thing is just how to go about lectures and how to actually revise those lectures in an efficient way. If I'm in the lecture theatre and, say for example, the lecturer decides to start writing on the whiteboard for some stupid reason, or they've updated their slides but not given us that version, so there's an extra piece of information in there, I can take a photo on my iPhone of the slide and then I can just airdrop it to my iPad and paste it into the lecture. So say for example I'm on my computer watching a recording of the lecture and I want to do the same thing. All I have to do is press Command Shift 4 and that'll bring up the screenshot cursor. if I want to screenshot, say this picture, and I drag it across, and then I hold down Control. So holding down the Control, you're gonna then let go of the mouse, and that'll take a screenshot. And what that's gonna do is then save it to your clipboard. And then because you're using an Apple computer and an Apple iPad, all you have to do then is tap and hold on your paper on your iPad and then paste it, and then it'll take a second, and then that's included in your notebook now. And I found that to be really useful as well. One more thing I got to say actually was that for some lectures I don't take notes at all. So I just try to focus. Some of them are mandatory, so I'll just have to really try and control myself and sit there for 2 hours and pay attention for that long. And then others where I don't have to be there in person, I'll actually load it up onto this screen and I will watch the lecture while riding on the bike. I use Zwift, and I'll just ride for however long the lecture is. Usually, sometimes I'll put it on double speed because it's pretty basic. Yep, that's all I want to say. Don't take notes for everything. I'd say I overall have a pretty relaxed approach to uni, which actually stresses out Wes and probably some of my friends as well at times. And it's definitely not how I started out at uni. But I think that, especially in medicine, if it's the only thing that you're doing, then you're doing something wrong. And I guess my lack of stress has allowed me to do so many other things while I'm doing uni. And my grades haven't suffered at all, which is why I guess I'm encouraging it. So right now, on top of my packed medicine schedule, I spend at least 14 hours a week training to try and become an elite runner one day. I also helped write a book earlier this year, which will be coming out soon. I've done some work shifts to pay for running expenses, and that'll be picking up again soon. And on top of that, now I'm making these videos to help people like you in the areas that I guess have a bit of knowledge in, which is mostly, I guess, med school and running. And lizards as well, obviously. And hopefully, maybe that'll help me get that sponsorship. So you can help me out by helping the engagement on these videos, as well as following my Instagram, and ask me any questions in the comments. And that's it. I hope this has been useful and that you've enjoyed this kind of crossover between a, I guess, information video and a morning in the life. Yeah, so it's now 2:30 and I'm planning on going to watch another lecture and take notes on my iPad, and then going to watch the Women's Olympic Marathon with some friends, and that's it.